It is 7:03 on the 8th of June, and I'm calling the borough meeting to order. And Mr. Maskell will lead the flag salute.
Okay. Oops. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it
stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay. Good job. Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in the Beach Haven Municipal Building and mailing same to the Beach Haven Times, the Asbury Park Press, and the Press of Atlantic City. Mr. Allen.
Here.
Mrs. Baumiller.
Here.
Mr. Lynch.
Here.
Mr. Maskell.
Here.
Mayor Davis.
Here.
Cash receipts in the current fund account for the period of May 1st through May 31st were $2,952,350.27. Cash disbursements in the current fund account for the month of May totaled $1,675,338.47. The cash balance in the current fund account as of this period totaled $14,544,554.98. Cash receipts in the water utility account for this period, May 1st through May 31st, were $88,557.24. Cash disbursements in the water utility account for the month of May totaled $137,932.98. And the cash balance in the water utility account as of May 31st was $4,783.05. And I just wanted to let you know that the beach badge sales through the month of May totaled $234,042, which is a surprising increase over last year of $29,432. So that's a positive for us, and we'll see if it's going to level out. I think there was a little bit of panic that people wouldn't be able to get badges. I have minutes for this evening of May 11th, 2020, a regular meeting, and I'm sorry, this is a May 20th agenda meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Do I have a motion on the minutes as presented?
Motion approved.
Tom Lynch, I have you making a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chuck. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Bruce, I'm going to hand this portion of the meeting over to you, the public hearing. Unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Next on the agenda is the application of Bird and Betty's liquor license 1503-32-009-005 for a place-to-place transfer application expansion of premises pursuant to New Jersey regulations. Just to clarify, I wanted to put some background on the record that this was originally an application that was submitted on or around April 22nd, which sought to expand the licensed premises generally in a southerly direction across Dock Road. On May 29th, there was an amendment of that application to expand rather than southerly in a westerly direction across the vehicular right-of-way and that first row of parking spots on that roadway between Dock Road and 2nd. I know there's been discussions around town and throughout concerning different variations on that, but formally presented to the borough for consideration as part of this application were those two applications. And so presently before the council is the application submitted on May 29th, which is the westerly expansion across that road and into that first row of parking spots between Dock Road and 2nd Street. We held a meeting on when was our first meeting? May 11th, Sherry, was the first public hearing we had?
No, it was the 20th.
Oh, sorry. Fine.
And I
That's
believe
right.
the license number is 1503-33-004-005. Not that that matters, but.
Okay, sorry if I misspoke or wrote it down wrong.
That's okay.
So we had a hearing. We received written objections and comments, which were all forwarded to counsel for the applicant, and had a hearing on May 20th. At that time, there were some technological limitations with Zoom, so we adjourned the hearing to the 28th. At that time, those problems were not cleared up, and we did not proceed there, although there were some comments during the general public comment portion of the meeting related to this application. And now here we are on June 8th for the continuation of the hearing. My understanding is we've confirmed that all those technological issues have been clarified. So we're here to continue the public hearing. Really, this is an extension of the previous public hearing. So we'd like to give everyone an opportunity to speak who has not spoken before, or if you have changed your position on this or wish to speak on the amendment. But I really would like to go to people who have not had a chance to speak yet first. I think in an effort to be efficient, obviously this is subject, Madam Mayor, to your prerogative, that we open it up to the public first and then allow the applicant to speak after the public is finished, rather than have the applicant speak now and then the public, and then the applicant will want to respond. The applicant can just speak at the end.
Makes sense.
Is that that's okay with the mayor? I'd like to, is that okay with the applicant? I'm not sure who's proceeding tonight, Mr. Silver or Mr. Flower.
This is Willis Flower representing Bird and Betty's, and that's acceptable to the applicant.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Silver is on as well.
He is.
Betty's.
Thank you.
Okay. Sherry or Mayor, however you want to proceed now.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, so at this time, if there's any member of the public who has not previously spoken on this topic at a previous meeting, if you would raise an electronic hand, it's under the participants category of your screen, and then we will call on you. If you're having trouble, if you're having difficulty raising an electronic hand, Margaret, we've already heard from you, so give me a minute, okay? If you're having trouble with that and you've not previously spoken, you can unmute yourself and identify yourself. Some folks are not real schooled on Zoom yet. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak to this application that have not been heard previously? Bruce, I see no electronic hands raised. Is there
Okay.
anyone?
Open it up to anyone else.
If you cannot raise an electronic hand, you can unmute yourself and identify yourself. Otherwise, Bruce, then we can go on to folks. I see Margaret has her hand raised. I know we've heard from her already.
Yeah, so if there's no one who wishes to speak who hasn't spoken yet, then you could proceed to anyone else.
Okay. Margaret, go ahead. State your name and address for the record. Where'd she go?
Margaret, you're still muted.
There you
Margaret
go.
Denny. Got me?
Yes,
112 West Avenue.
thank you. Go ahead.
So, I wanted to clarify some things that were said, about what this was going to be about. I know that we talked, that Melanie had described that this, they wanted to save as many employees because they were the largest employer in town, but in reality, that's a falseness. I think that Fantasy Island has many more employees than they do. And the pedestrian mall was really not part of the master plan. It was about enhancing the bayfront area, which already the borough has done a wonderful job with, you know, maintaining the fishing docks and creating all that parking and roadway there for the community and the patrons to get to and utilize that. And this whole proposition about closing part of the road, taking parking spots away from this public area is really a violation of the public trust doctrine. And that's a doctrine which protects the access for the public to have access and use to the coastal lands, water, and resources, which the board plays a key role in conserving and enhancing this public access to our bayfront area. And I just wouldn't want to see that be, you know, violated in any way by taking it away, let alone all the congestion that this is going to create for what is already a very, very congested area. You know, the traffic is one thing, taking away parking, which is already an issue, which the very applicants have been fighting against having a hotel restaurant put in there for over a year now because of traffic, congestion, and parking. For them to now be hypocritical and turn around and ask for a street to be closed and parking to be taken away for one business is very much not in the interest of the whole neighborhood. And I believe that, you know, when they say that this would be a very family-friendly atmosphere, I have never seen kids at daiquiris on the deck. I believe that's just a bunch of people drinking, and that's what that would be in the streets. And, you know, Beach Haven being such a family-friendly town, I think that would drive a lot of people away, knowing that it's becoming just another party town. And then when they have teen night, I'm not sure what they would do with that. So that's another question, how that would work. And I think another question I have too is they said they have an occupancy of 1,300 people for Bird and Betty's. Now, I don't think that this is all sit down eating patrons. I would like to see a breakdown of how many tables they have for diners, how many people are standing at bars, how many people are on the dance floor. Do we have a site plan from when they got that, or an engineered drawing from when they got that 1,300 capacity that we're trying to help them to equal in the street? I'm not sure how we're going to get to that number. And I don't think, and also in Governor Murphy's Executive Order 150, he states that if you do distribute shared public access areas, then they should be distributed equitably among all the restaurants and bars. And the space should be shared then with Polly's Dock, which is another restaurant right in the area. I mean, you can't just give it to one restaurant and not allow others to have public spaces, streets, whatnot for their businesses to expand into also. So you know, if this were the case, maybe Center Street would be shut down and all the businesses along Center Street could have a piece of the street. But, you know, I know that's just obviously not practical. And I don't want to see anybody's business hurt, but I think we're all in a position here that, you know, we'll do the best we can to help everybody, but we can't just do it for one and let all the other businesses go under. And especially when they have enough property within their property lines to put up tents and put out tables like many of the other businesses have already done. And they already have also. I counted at least 120 seats under the one tent they have up already. And a bar area to boot. So I don't know what kind of capacity they're trying to get to for that one business. And I just think that all these things should be really considered when there's so many people. You know, they said that they have a lot of people in opposition, in support of this, and everybody I've spoke to is in opposition of it. There's so much, you know, danger with the fire safety, with the emergency services. If something were to happen, and getting a vehicle in there would not be an easy task. If they were to reroute the front of, you know, the West Avenue in front of our business, I would have one-way traffic. That would be crazy. I don't need additional parking. I would like to keep the parking open. I think I've seen that on one of their plans. I think they've had 5 different plans floating around. It's getting a little confusing what to keep up with. But I think that the general idea is, I mean, we've already allowed them to build Parker's Garage into the public sidewalk, and we've let, you know, they were lenient to them. They gave them a temporary CO. They're supposed to remove that, I think, in September or October. But that's already creating a public, you know, danger, impeding on the sidewalk already. So how much do we give to one business without giving to all? And I would not like to see this happen, you know, for the detriment of the others in the area. The neighbors, the people who have residences there are going to be hearing music all night long. People are going to be drinking, walking down the streets. It's going to be mayhem.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be fair to the others in the area.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
All right, I apologize for not, please, for not making the announcement to please keep your comments to 3 minutes. I don't want it to get long, to be a lengthy meeting. If you have a comment, please raise an electronic hand and I will call on you as we go here. Anne Reeve Smith.
Hello,
You there? Okay, state your name and address for the record, please.
Anne Reeve Smith. I live at 204 2nd Street in Beach Haven.
Okay, keep your comments to 3 minutes. Go ahead. Oh, what happened to you?
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay. This whole idea does not sit right to me. It is a public right of way. People do a lot of driving through there. I ride my bike as well as many other people in the public. And I don't think it's in our best interest safety-wise. And as far as the master plan goes, I have a copy and it was only mentioned as a consideration. And I don't think it's a good idea to consider blocking Dock Road off. I am opposed. Bird and Betty's have really set up a nice area already. And I think they're just gonna have to go with that because it's not fair to other establishments. That's all I have to say. I'd like to see the council say no to this because it's a public road. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Betsy Shawtree.
Yes.
Okay, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, it's Betsy Shawtree, 131 11th Street, Beach Haven.
Okay.
I agree with everything that Margaret had to say, and the previous lady about you just can't have it for one and not for all, and therefore you just can't continue to give to one person and not everybody else. And that's basically what I'm going to say.
Thank you. Barb Kona. Barb, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Your address?
Barb Kona, 100 Northwest Avenue. I am next door to Polly's Dock and 1 block over from Bird and Betty's and Parker's Garage. So I found Margaret's comments rather interesting when she talks about fairness and equal treatment and engineered drawings. I think that she presented something with a hand-drawn figure as far as what she was proposing, and they have come back again and again asking for permission to increase their capacity. As for music, I live in the area. If you open your windows or you're outside, you hear music from Bird and Betty's, Tucker's, Parker's Garage. I hear it from the Marlin and Tuna Club on a regular basis, the way the sound travels. Never really bothers me. If I want peace and quiet, I close my windows and I turn on the air conditioning. I have an issue in this town with the fact that one business is granted something and another business is refused. I've seen time and time again when there is selective treatment, it just seems that way. I'm not accusing anyone, but it seems that there's a different set of rules depending on who is asking. And the borough has already given up public parking areas to businesses to help them out during this time. And therefore, I've spoken about this in other meetings. I think that you need to bend over backwards this year to help out every single business. I'm not just talking about restaurants. I'm talking about retail establishments. People are not going to survive this summer if they don't get the assistance they need. We need to come together as a community. Everybody help everybody out. Give everybody a hand. And that's all I have to say. I think equal treatment is great.
Thanks, Barb. Tony Gambles?
Gambles, 1 Marine Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was muted. I have a question. I've been talking to several land use attorneys, and I was wondering, and we've seen this situation where I live in New York, and in many of the areas this is happening where they're closing streets, using different areas. But the problem that I've read that's come about is if the police and the EMS and the fire department state that this is a safety issue, and a situation occurs where those vital minutes come into play and they can't get to the person or the situation, is the borough accountable? Can the borough be sued? Who will be responsible for that? Every minute counts in a situation of health and safety. So that is my question. Who will be accountable if those vital minutes cause a serious illness, a death, a slower response?
Thank you, Tony. Anything
That's
else?
my question.
At this time, we're taking comments from the public. John, please keep yourself on mute, okay? Raise an electronic hand if you'd like to speak.
Okay, I'd like to raise my hand too. That's what I was doing.
Okay, all right, state your address.
Yeah, my address is 211 2nd Street.
Go ahead.
And John Harvey. And, you know, I think the issue of Bird and Betty's will be worked out. I think Melanie might even have an alternative solution that sounds like it works. But I think a lot of the conversation is about treating them differently than others, which is, I think, creating some of the, concern in the area, as people have said. The reality is, my understanding is the only reason they're being treated a little differently is because of their liquor license, right? And if the issue is parking, which is what I hear everybody saying, and safety, if you just drive around that area, Tucker's has a huge tent, which means all of their customers are not going to be parking in their parking lot. Barry's has the municipal lot next to them, which meant people that park there are now going to be on the streets. Buckaloo's has a huge tent behind them, which means that parking is now going to be out on the street. So I don't think there's any, special treatment being given. And I think it's great when you look around and see all these people going to outdoor seating. I think the issue here is the liquor license, which is creating another level of scrutiny. But, I've said from early on that I was surprised that the borough didn't take a broader approach to figuring out a solution for all of the restaurants rather than just focusing on Bird and Betty's. That's it.
Thanks, John. John Halprin?
Yes, hi everyone. This is John Halprin, 319 Fairview Avenue, Beach Haven, as well as president of the Beach Haven Taxpayers Association. We did submit our written comments, and I'll just summarize them for everyone. Our main concern, and it's not a question from our perspective of not wanting to see our businesses do well, our main concern always has been the public safety aspect of this. Police and fire have been on record to object to this for public safety reasons. With all the deliveries on West Avenue to Parkers, there's no ambulance or fire truck that we're able to navigate east on Dock Road between the restaurants or making a right-hand turn onto West Avenue, especially when northbound traffic on West Avenue now encounters a dead end. As I said to you before, we have always been supportive of businesses in our community. It enhances taxable revenues. It provides a much needed revenue source. But there has to be a balance between the public safety concerns that police, fire, and EMT has raised and the economic expansion of our businesses for survival. The community has to come together and come up with creative ways in which these businesses could survive by using their current property as opposed to closing down a public street that could endanger the public at large. In summary, all of our businesses are going through hardship now. But the borough is doing its best to provide some help by letting restaurants use their parking lots and sidewalks. But to close a public street, we don't believe is feasible, as well as we don't believe it is safe. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Melanie Magaziner?
Thank you, Sherry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead and state your address for the record. Whoa, what happened?
She remuted herself, Melanie.
Can you hear me, Sherry?
There you go. Go ahead.
Hi, Willis will speak in a little while. I feel like I need to address some concerns sorry about my dog, where we are not blocking access to the waterfront. We are not blocking off a public street. I did submit a few plans prior to this that allowed for emergency vehicle access and traffic, but this is not one that blocks the street at all. There's been some questions about team night. How are we going to handle that? Well, we're not allowed to have team night. The nightclub's not allowed to be open yet. And once all the restrictions are lifted, then your executive order basically says that everything has to go back to the way it was before this all started. I understand that everyone feels like I'm a hypocrite right now because I have a problem with massive development, but this is temporary. This is because of a pandemic. There's no development involved with our project. We're asking for some tables. I think Center Street should be shut down too for some of the businesses. That would be great. The issue here is that we have no outside seating for the whale, basically. We have 7 tables right now approved. We have the sidewalk allowed at Parker's, which gives us about 10 tables. So this helps us allow all of our businesses in Beach Haven to be successful. Since we don't have the parking at Black, we have a small parking lot, but it's next to a dumpster and it's where all of our deliveries come in. So we felt like that wasn't an appropriate place to put tables. Noise, I think your executive order has time constraints on the outside seating in the borough right away. We have to shut down at a certain time. We have to bring the tables in if they're in the public right away. Again, can we be clear about what we're asking for here? We're not asking to block a street. We're asking for parking. We're asking to take some parking. That's not a road we're asking for today. That's a parking lot. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. Willis will clarify. But again, this is about a pandemic. This is about us getting through the next couple months, not the next 100 years. So we would appreciate any help from the council that you could offer us.
Thank you. So just to be clear, Bruce, this application that is before us is not a temporary request, right? This is a permanent request.
Right. There's a process the state came out with on Friday for temporary requests that would be similar to this, that would permit it until the end of November. This is under the regular rules, like non-COVID rules for an expansion of premises. It's a permanent expansion, subject to any conditions the council might have, or the right to actually use the property, because this would extend beyond the property boundaries that the licensee owns.
Right, but you can take that away once we renew. When we renew our license, you have the right to take away your property.
Yeah, that's true. Subject, like I said, subject to.
Which is the end of September. That's when the renewals happen. So at the end of September, you have the right to tell the state we cannot use your property anymore. Correct?
Okay.
That is true.
Thank you.
Scott, did you have anything to add to that, please?
I was just going to clarify that essentially the city can terminate the expansion anytime it wants by simply revoking the right to allow the use of the area. So while it's permanent in some nature, there's an underlying ability of the city to terminate the expansion anytime it wants by simply saying, we're taking back the right to use the expanded area.
Thank you. Mr. Bullman, I see you trying to speak. Let me get you, hold on a second. Let me get you unmuted here. Are you able to do it yourself, Mr. Bullman? Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
There you go. State your name and address for the record.
Sure. It's Joe Bowman, 416 Dock Road. I agree with what most of the other speakers have said, although based on Ms. Magaziner's comments, I'm confused about the duration of this thing, whether it's permanent or not permanent. And the thing is that my understanding is that the motivation for this application is the restrictions on the use of the restaurant premises because of the COVID-19. And my understanding is that under the governor's plan, within a very short time, the interior of the restaurant will be available for occupancy. And so I really, question the need for this application, and especially concerned about the duration. I mean, if the governor removes the restrictions and allows occupancy of the inside of the restaurant, as they should, at that point, would the use of Dock Road be rescinded by the town? I mean, there wouldn't seem to be any need for it after that. And I'm also concerned about the hours of operation because of the noise situation, and the extent of the use, the expansion.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Well, what is it? I mean, is it permanent or is it not? If they, governor, if the restrictions are removed, does this end? Doesn't seem any need.
Well, let me address that. I'll address that. So with any liquor license, there's an area that is the licensed premises. So think of, looking from above, a ring around an area. What the applicant is seeking is expansion of that to the west, outside the boundaries of the property. Separate, but going with that, they have to have the right to use that property. So we as the borough can revoke the right to use that property, and the effect of revoking that would mean that they can no longer serve liquor there. So the application is a permanent process that they're asking for, but they don't have a perpetual right to use the land, such as if I owned a parcel of property that was licensed. They're asking our permission to use the property, and then also asking our permission separate but concurrent with that to allow liquor to be served within that property. Is that fair, Scott? I want to give him a chance to respond to that.
Well, would the revocation occur if the restrictions by the state were removed and they were allowed to use the interior?
Not automatically.
Bruce,
Go ahead, Scott, sorry.
Bruce, you are exactly correct. The city has, through its ownership of the underlying ground, the ability to essentially terminate, would have the ability to terminate Bird and Betty's use of that outside property at any time.
But in terms of Mr. Bowman, whether this goes away as when the restrictions loosen, as it exists now, no, that could be conditions that the borough places on it, that the council approves. But no, there's a separate process that would go away automatically.
So even if the restrictions are removed, they could continue to use the outside if the town didn't do anything.
That is correct.
And what are the hours of operation supposed to be for this expanded outside area?
I need to defer to Melanie or Willis on that.
Sherry, I think the hours for any of the restaurants expanding to the outside are in your executive order, correct?
Yes.
So maybe you can tell him what those hours are, because I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't have all that stuff right in front of me right now.
I think it's 10 during the week.
I'm gonna see if I could find it.
I think it's 10 during the week and 11 on the week, Friday, Saturday.
Mr. Bowman, I have to move on. Is there anything else that you'd like to state?
No, just I have the same safety and noise concerns that the other people have expressed.
Okay, thank you.
The draft emergency order I have is 10 and 11. 10 during the week, 11 on Friday nights and Saturday nights.
Thank you. That sounds right. Stephen Beninati. You there, Mr. Beninati? You can unmute yourself. State your name and address for the record. Mr. Beninati?
Can't hear you.
No.
I need a pencil.
I don't want you to miss your turn here, Mr. Beninati here. Let me try to unmute for you. There you go. Are you there? Mr. Beninati? Okay, we're going to move on to the next. Jim Vogel? Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Ooh, turn your sound down.
Turn my sound down?
I could hear some feedback. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a few points of concern that I'd like to read. We've been besieged with different variations of this application, this one being every bit as ridiculous as the previous ones. Let's start with 2nd Street. This now becomes one way once we pass Bird and Betty's parking lot. So there's no impact to them, but anyone parking in the borough lot now will be forced to exit onto Dock Road.
I'm not understanding why. I'm trying to.
The area between their parking lot and the restrooms. This blocks a public street and will greatly increase vehicular traffic onto Dock Road. They also show traffic barriers on Dock Road between West Avenue and their now to be tenant area. This just increases traffic problems. The piece de resistance of this plan, however, is designating a parking area on the east side of West Avenue and making that section of West Avenue one way. Since Parkers has no loading zone, this street very often has trucks unloading on both sides of West Avenue. This means that trucks will only be allowed to unload on the west side. With their proposed angled parking, this will effectively completely block the street, making it impossible for a car to get by. Showing a complete disregard for their neighbors, this proposal blocks the driveway of Michael Batista's parking lot and also blocks off the museum's driveway. Just as a little food for thought, I'd like to point out that 3 of the most active members of the Manpower Challenge Beach Haven First Aid Squad live at the museum. Closing off the driveway will greatly encumber their ability to respond to calls, and if a truck happens to be unloading at Parker's, they would be unable to respond at all. In spite of the applicant's claims, this plan can't help but have a negative impact on both the museum and Polly's dock.
Whose TV is that? Whose TV is on? Can you mute yourself, please?
Okay. With the changed traffic patterns and restrictions on access, this plan will severely hamper the ability for response by fire, first aid, and police, making it a completely unacceptable risk to public safety. Allowing one restaurant to utilize a public street will open a Pandora's box. How could you possibly think that other restaurants would not seek the same consideration? When you consider the applicant's vehement application to Hotel Beach Haven for exactly the reasons they would like waived for them, this application just reeks of hypocrisy. When you note the addition to the deck at Parker's, which encroaches on the public right-of-way, far beyond the point of being just an oopsie, one can't help but wonder what this group has in store next. Despite the plaintive cry that they need this to survive, we've seen Bill Burris quoted in the Sandpaper saying, "We expected the application to be processed, checks cashed, the application forwarded to the ABC and approved and clearly discussed upon renewal in September when the license timeframe ends." Then we have a quote by Melanie Magaziner in what was supposedly a confidential email stating, "If you were to consider this for the future." These quotes leave little doubt that this all goes back to their original plan to expand Bird and Betty's liquor license to include Parker's. I hate to say this, but it sure seems possible they are using the COVID pandemic as a way to get their foot in the door. Thank you.
Sherry, how long are we gonna, I mean, this is not the advertised plan that he's commenting on. We're not closing any roads. We're not closing Dock Road. I don't know what we're talking about here.
The amendment that was sent to my office shows the portion of West Avenue being a one-way street.
No.
Correct?
No.
Yes, and that the little throughway between Second and Dock closed between Bird and Betty's and the parking lot.
Just that.
In addition, right, and then in the addition, there's a little piece of West Avenue that was greened off for additional parking for Polly's, and then West Avenue shows it being a one-way. That's the plan that was submitted as part of the amendment.
I'm gonna have to let Willis comment on that, but we're not closing Dock Road.
Right.
We're not
So
closing Dock Road.
what I
Nothing
tried to
changes on
say,
Dock Road.
what I tried to say in my initial comments is try to outline and avoid any confusion to the extent possible. What the council is going to be considering is the expansion of the liquor license. And that originally was to close Dock Road by expanding it southerly across Dock Road. It was amended now to expand to the west into that first row of parking spots only, but Dock Road and 2nd Street would remain open through that parking lot. So the only area that would be closed would be the width of Bird and Betty's across that road that cuts between Dock and 2nd and into that first row of parking spots. The rest of that parking lot with the restrooms would remain open to vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle traffic. Anything associated with the plan, such as that green area that Sherry's referring to, I don't want to characterize it. There were indications on the map, but that's not something the council's voting on now. They're voting solely on the expansion of the liquor license.
Okay, can I move on? I have hands raised. Thank you. Michael for Nicola.
Hello. Michael Fernicola, 424 3rd Street, Beach Haven. I just came on this originally, and it was a month ago almost, just to support the associates over there at Bird and Betty's. It initially had a lot of response, and I thought this was just going to be a layup for a business that was trying to put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Through all this, I see that the main concern now we hear from the police department, the fire department, the EMS, and I'm not one to disagree with them because the burden falls on them. However, being a resident on 3rd Street, I've also attended these hotel meetings, and we're talking a lot about hypocrisy, but we seem to be putting it on Miss Magaziner. I don't see how any reasonable person can think that putting a 100-room hotel and a 600-seat restaurant is not going to add at least this many participants in the time, that we're talking about. So, is putting a hotel there going to add all these things? And where were these safety concerns before? Whatever you guys decide to do, I think you've opened the Pandora's box here of saying that there's, it's a danger, who's going to get the liability, but yet, on a busy Friday night, you could have 100 guests checking in, 100 guests checking out, 300 people go into the restaurant, but yet trying to do a little space temporarily is a huge safety concern. So those, as a resident, is, we start talking safety concerns. Now I'm very, very interested in how things pan out. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Beninati, I see you've joined the meeting again. Mr. Beninati, would you like to speak? Are you able to unmute yourself? There you go. Got too many devices running at once.
Am I unmuted now?
Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
State your address.
212 Center Street. I'd like to speak, as I did about 10 days ago, in support of the expansion. But I also want to make it a point, and I've heard all of the commentary. Every business, not just restaurant business, every business in Beach Haven has to deal with the pandemic issues and extraordinary circumstances. We are all in survival mode. My wife and I own the Gables. I want to bring to everyone's attention, and I'm sure you've all read it, but this is, I think, a very important sentence. This is in the governor's order. Number 6, municipalities that make outdoor shared spaces, such as sidewalks, streets, or parks available for use by food or beverage establishments, should equitably divide these spaces among food or beverage establishments that can feasibly use it. Every restaurant in Beach Haven, every business in Beach Haven needs additional accommodation. The restaurants, because of the last order that we're all going to be operating under on June 15th, every restaurant needs additional seating capacity. I think that this application should be supported, and I think that every restaurant, including ours, that is looking for additional space the town should make some accommodation, especially in view of the fact that for whatever reason, Barry's Do Me a Flavor ice cream store, the town has, I guess, approved giving that establishment, which I support, parking spaces. Every establishment that has the ability to expand their premises into public parking should be allowed to do so. Again, I said it before, we're all in survival mode. The town needs to be a bit more flexible, and the residents of the town need to be a bit more flexible. I'll end it there. Thank you.
I think we lost Sherry.
Yeah.
She's back.
Sherry? Sherry?
Well, Dan, you can take over.
Huh?
Yeah, I can take over. Does anybody else want to speak? I can.
I'm here.
Oh,
She's
good.
back.
Mr. Beninati's finished?
Wait a second. You're
Yeah.
making.
Okay. Is
Your
Mr.
sound
Beninati
sensitive
still
here.
speaking?
Sherry, your sound is off. It's very
Off?
difficult to hear what you're saying.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Better.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Beninati, we can continue to speak about this tomorrow as well. Okay, I have more hands raised here. Courtney Kona. Go
Hi,
ahead.
this is Courtney Kona, 100 Northwest Avenue. First and foremost, in terms of the life safety, if we want to talk about what's being proposed here, from my understanding, it's just parking spots that are owned by the borough. There's no difference if I go and park my car in a couple of those parking spots. It's not taking up any additional space within the street. So from my understanding, what's being proposed would not impact the life safety response that the town is able to perform. So that's first. Second of all, it's just tiring to hear so many people that want everything exactly the same. Not one business in Beach Haven is located in exactly the same spot as another one. It's a fluid situation. Everyone's unique, and you need to be able to handle it on a case-by-case basis. So how about every single person rallies behind the other businesses and the residents in the town, and we come back from this as a community? It shouldn't be a competition. It shouldn't be that one person can't have something, so I don't want it, or, it's just like, where are we rallying behind all of the businesses so that everyone can rebuild from all of this? Every state across the country has a different order that's coming out. Different states are able to open at different times because they're all unique situations. So, we need to handle this as a community. Let's focus on Beach Haven, and let's be able to rebuild our town in the best way for our community. It's not going to be a competition between one business versus another. How about we all back each other here?
Thank you. Mark Cohen.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, state your address for the record.
Mark Cohen, 3 West Alabama, Long Beach Township. So my interest here is that I'm still a managing partner of the chicken or the egg. And for us, what I see happening here is everybody trying to survive. And I think that we need to allow our businesses to do so. If this is a temporary situation, we're all in very, very unprecedented circumstances. So if we allow one business to do this, I agree with the last person who said that let's not fight one another over, they're allowed to do this and I'm not allowed to do that. Can we just do whatever we can to allow these businesses to survive until we're through this? So I support the Melanie's application.
Thank you, Mark. Deb Whitcraft.
Yeah, can you hear me, Sherry?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the latest plan number 5 that was submitted by this group of owners. This isn't a competition. I'm not in the restaurant business, but it expands the earlier proposals by reconfiguring not one road, but 4. I know there's only one issue before council, but looking at this plan, it is truly a serious public safety issue. West Avenue, based on this plan, would become southbound only from Dock Road to Center Street. Dock Road would become eastbound only from the Bayfront to West Avenue. 2nd Street would turn into a westbound only lane halfway between Pennsylvania Avenue and the Bayfront. The plan, I don't know who drew it up, but the actual plan that was submitted shows the proposed lanes of traffic on 2nd Street actually traveling in the wrong lanes, opposite the normal flow for east and westbound traffic. The 4th road, and this is the big one, this is what's really before you, I assume, on Plan 5. Between 2nd Street and Dock Road is the road adjacent to the west side of Bird and Betty's. It is a heavily trafficked road. It is proposed that this road be closed entirely and that outdoor seating and consumption of alcoholic beverages be extended across this road and across the parking lot up to the public restrooms, closing off an important access road, not just for vehicles, but for emergency ambulances, fire trucks, police. And then when you review the closure of the southbound section of West Avenue between Dock Road and Center Street and the creation of an area noted as parking for polys, although I don't know who's going to regulate this, it shows the addition of barricades to prevent northbound traffic from Center Street into West Avenue, which would block the Konas and the Burrises from their parking garages, since they can't make a right-hand turn onto West Avenue. And the newly created parking area shaded in gray on this plan, as Jim pointed out, it blocks the driveway entrance and exit of the Maritime Museum and the driveway of Mike Batista's property that adjoins ours. Parker's Garage has no loading zone or any off-street parking of any kind, so the delivery trucks that consistently use West Avenue and Dock Road to deliver products to the establishment, that's not a problem for those of us who live and work in this area. We're tolerant of it because we know there's no other options for the drivers. But if such a proposal to reconfigure Dock Road and West Avenue were approved, a single delivery truck in front of Parker's would impede any eastbound vehicle onto Dock Road from entering West Avenue and proceeding to Center Street. There's no room for a maneuver for someone to make a K-turn or a U-turn. Our chief of police, our chief of our fire company, our president of our first aid squad, and many people in a position of ensuring public safety have very strongly voiced their opposition to any proposal that requests the closure of any public roadway. No other business owner has asked.
She just went off.
Thank you. Deb? Okay. All right, Margaret, I have to skip you since you've spoken already and go to someone that hasn't. Christine Kep? Christine, are you there? I'm going to unmute you. No? Where'd she go? Christine, are you there? You have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Sorry. Hi.
There you go. State your name and address for the record.
Christine Copy, 509 Center Street.
Go ahead.
Just hopefully the last speaker that we just heard, I want to just clarify, this is not for the closing of the streets. This is for the tented area and then the spots directly to the west, meaning that the flow of traffic and the safety issues have been taken off the table. Pointing out that the COVID-19 situation, pandemic we are in, changes daily, hence the amendments that needed to be made and that need to be made, and by all of the businesses in the area. We want to support them. We want our little town, our borough to survive. We want people to be able to come and to enjoy themselves. I do not think that the time limits of people sitting outside is an issue. They're outdoor seating all over the borough, and the times are the same. So the people that continue to argue that point, I think are missing something here. So just my opinion, I am in support of this. I'm right in the heart of many, many businesses, as you know, right in the middle of Center Street, and we would just like to do anything we can to see all of them survive. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Steiner?
Hello?
Go ahead, state your address.
Oh, it's Steve Steiner, 521 Amber Street.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you very much. It bothers me that we keep bringing up versions of this plan that are no longer under consideration. And we keep saying, oh, there's this safety thing and there's this problem and what have you. I'm not in the restaurant business other than the fact that we have an ice cream parlor. But the fact that we keep trying to muddy this issue with things that are no longer on the table, you can go back meetings after meetings after meetings. I do not always agree with Mr. Burris, and I think that's well documented because I support the hotel and he does not. But the fact is, this is not about who do we like and who do we not like, but that's what's coming out in all of these arguments. There's a faction that wants to bury Bill Burris, and there's a faction that wants to help Bill Burris. I don't want to do either. I want every single place of business in this borough to be able to survive the pandemic. And the fact, as I understand it, that what their current plan, and yes, okay, there's been 5 plans. And the reason I surmise that there have been 5 plans is that they keep running into, well, we can't do this because of this. Well, we can't do that because of that. So let's find something that we can do that won't obstruct anything that people are objecting to. And that seems to be the plan that they are currently bringing forward, which is to block several parking spaces, which if there were cars parked there, any emergency vehicles would have to drive around anyway. So you're not blocking anything that wouldn't otherwise be blocked by vehicles. So stop bringing up 2nd Street, stop bringing up West Avenue, because it has nothing to do with what they have proposed. And let's talk about what the reality is here, which is what their current proposal is, and stop trying to bury Bill Burris because you don't like him. It's ridiculous and it offends me. I'm done.
Thank you, Steve. All right, is there any other member of the public that would like to speak who hasn't spoken already? Please raise your hand. I'd like to wrap this up, please. Margaret, did you have one other comment that you needed to make? I see you still have a hand up.
I had a question.
This is a public comment session. Do you have comments?
I have 2 comments. The fact that they say they're not using a road, I believe this plan, which I guess I haven't really seen, blocks the road that connects West Avenue with, or Dock Street with 2nd Street, Dock Road with 2nd Street. I believe this plan takes that road out. And if correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a roadway. And it has arrows on it for traffic to go both ways. So it's a two-way street there that they want to take out and bring their seating all the way to the public restrooms. That was what I was under the understanding of. And I also believe on that plan, which is the one we're talking about, it reroutes everything to one ways. I'm never going to get boats trailered around that whole loop through all the cars and people to put them in my lot to work on them when I have a problem. It's going to really mess up my business. And the other thing is, if this is going to give them a liquor license for in the street, once you try to remove it, will there be a lawsuit? We know that those lawsuits go out frequently from that end of the street. So would it be a lawsuit to try and revoke it? Or would it be something that's put into this, whatever is decided, to be automatically revoked as soon as the governor changes the things? I'm confused whether it will automatically go away, or will it be a fight to try and get them to stop having liquor in the street? Or will that land be granted to them to use that? And I believe they're going for a permanent and not a temporary solution to this. So that's my comment. And I think you should put the site plan up so we all know what we're talking about. I think people are confused. There is a road closed.
Thank you. Bruce, the hands that are raised have already spoken. How are we going to, I mean, this is going to go on and on and on.
I mean, unless someone has something new to say that's related directly to the application and not a response to someone else, then we should move forward and let the applicant speak.
Okay, I do have Mike Kona. He has not spoken before. Mike, go ahead.
Hi, Mike Kona, 100 North West Avenue.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to see every business have different opportunities that you wouldn't regularly have. The fact that we have a condition that is probably something that it's going to be the only time in our lifetimes that we experience, I think that the government should bend over backwards to help every business. And I think that what they're asking for, it seems to be just placing the parking so that they can have tables there. It's not going to impede any traffic. And I think that they're in agreement that you can place the condition on them now that it's only temporary. So I'd like to see every business have the same opportunity, just like the guy from the Gable said. It's really important that all the businesses are going to be able to survive. Thank you.
Sherry,
George
Sherry,
Salazar.
Sherry, I think everyone doesn't understand that your executive order says once the governor's restrictions are lifted, it has to go back.
Yes, but the place-to-place expansion through the division of ABC is a permanent expansion.
Right. But you can take it away just by saying at any time that we cannot use your property. Anytime. That's all it takes. One day.
George Salazar.
Hi, George Salazar speaking on behalf of Beach Haven Fire Company. I do apologize. I got kicked out of the meeting a few times. I'm not sure what's going on with the connectivity here. But for us, I have made every attempt. Ms. Magaziner and I have met on several occasions to try and mitigate any safety concerns that we have. As far as any previous plans go, I cannot speak to them because they're no longer in front of us. The only thing I can speak to is the current plan in front of us, and that with the fire company's position on this is anything that changes the direction of travel, anything that changes the ability to access all roads that are currently there, the fire company is not in favor of. So I hope that clears up the fire company's position. And just so that we're also clear, I am the only person that speaks on behalf of the fire company.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Okay, the three I have, Tony Gamels. You've already spoken before. Do you have something new to add?
I just have one question, not a question, a statement. You know, I agree with Mike Kona, but I'm very confused because during this meeting, I've heard three proposals. One is the street closing, one is the use of spaces, and one is the liquor license. And at this moment, I don't know who's zooming whom. I don't know which one that you're considering. The liquor license extension, I totally wouldn't agree with. The street closing should not be an option. Use of spaces for any business makes positive sense. Parking spaces to a certain degree, and that's just what I want to say. But I think other people might also feel confused about actually what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, I'd ask the applicant when it gets to them to describe the area present under consideration. But as I tried to specify in my introductory remarks, the area that the applicant is seeking to expand their license, into which they're seeking to expand their license, is the area, the width of the property extending westerly across that roadway without a name into that first row of parking spots. So would close that roadway between Second and Dock into that first row of parking spaces up to the bathroom only. There would still be vehicular traffic that could go from Dock through the parking lot and Second, or I guess the other way, depending on the direction of traffic. But the area between Dock and Second would be closed, as well as those, I don't know, 7 parking spots that are there. That is what the request is. What the council is voting on is the extension of the license. Separate from that, the direction of traffic, changing the direction of traffic, closing roads, that's separate prerogative of the borough. That's not part of this application. The only thing the council is considering is an expansion of the licensed premises, the width of Bird and Betty's property now, expanding that same width westerly to that first row of parking spots up until you get to the public bathroom in that parking lot.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, we have a couple more hands up. These people have already spoken before. Please only make comments that you haven't already made. Deb Whitcraft.
Yeah, can you hear me, Sherry?
Go ahead. Yes.
The gentleman who just spoke is exactly saying what some of us fear the most, that the borough council and manager is in fact looking at a proposal to close a public street between 2nd Street and Dock Road in order to allow for the expansion of the liquor license from the west end of Bird and Betty's across the public street that is heavily trafficked and to that row of cars alongside of the public restrooms. You are, in fact, if you approve this, you're allowing them to take over a public street. I don't have a problem with using parking areas for expansion of any restaurant or any business, but when you're closing a public street, I think that's a serious public safety issue. And I just want to make it clear to everybody, including Steve Steiner, that there is, in fact, a proposal to close a public street. And that's what I have a problem with. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steiner, please keep your comments short and to what you've not already spoken to. We'd like to wrap this up.
It's actually not me, it's Gail that would like to speak.
Hi, Gail.
Hi, I'm sorry, I don't Zoom very well, so I'm on my husband's phone.
Go ahead.
I just honestly, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me see.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Obviously, I'm here with my husband and we two are business owners. And I walk my dogs over there all the time because we live very close to here. And I have watched them set up their tents and their tables and everything else. And I know for a fact because we too are a restaurant owner, that they can't make it. They absolutely can't make it with the number of tables that are outside. I can do the math, and I don't have the kind of business that they have. I agree with the point that we're only taking over parking spaces, and I respect our fire companies so much, but perhaps we need to really look at whether or not we could try to make this work for them. It's a very difficult situation for all of us. We are all just dying here. Our governor is not supporting us, and our town is really behind us. And I hope that our town and our residents of our town will be with this restaurant and this group of restaurants, on all the restaurants. Barry's has put their tents out in municipal spaces. Buckaloo's is doing, everybody is doing their part. Let's all do our part, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Cohen, let's keep the comments to a minimum. Go ahead, Mark.
It's Sean, it's Mark's wife. And I want to say, do you remember when this entire town came together to support each other after Sandy? And honestly, I think that that's where we need to go. We need to support each other. We need to do what we can do. We need to get back on our feet. And we need to support each other, not knock each other down, and do what needs to be done. And let's just help one another like we did back in the day.
Thank you. Okay. Barb, do you have something new to add?
I do, Sherry. Just very briefly, I'll say that there's a solution to every problem. And maybe the proposed plan isn't the best possible solution, but I think that if you examine what's going on with every single business individually, and we talked about this weeks ago, that we keep going at it until we find a solution for every business. That's all.
Thank you. Margaret, I'm going to cut you off.
Last statement. I have a solution. If they use the parking spots to the north of Bird and Betty's, there's actually more parking spots there on their property than there is that they would utilize by the bathrooms in the parking area. That way they would have more space and none of our roads would have to be closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, I'm going to hand it over to you now, please, if we could wrap this up.
Sure. So the hearing for the public is closed, and now the applicant licensee has a chance to address the council.
This is Willis Flower. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Willis Flower. I represent Bird and Betty's. I'm a partner in a firm of Ford Flower, Hasbrook, and Laughlin. And I know this has been a long meeting, so I'm going to keep my comments relatively attenuated. We do have a traffic engineer, and we do have a planner, and I believe Mr. Burris will want to address the council. And I'm going to try to stay on point. I've listened carefully to the comments that have been made, and they seem to fall into three categories. Category one seems to be people who are talking about the wrong plan. So I'm not going to bother with that. Category two has to do with people who want to impugn my client's motives, and they're certainly free to think what they want, but it's not really relevant to whether or not this is an application the council should approve. Group number three has made some good points both pro and con, but they've addressed the merits of the plan, and they've also addressed the situation that we find ourselves in. And it's not a good situation. It's not going to be a surprise to anybody here that we are in a public health emergency. It's not a surprise to anybody here that more than 100,000 Americans are dead. It's not a surprise to anybody here that tens of thousands more are sick, and it's still going on, and we don't have a cure, we don't have a vaccine, and everybody is kind of just trying to do the best they can to make do and minimize damage. But besides the human cost of this awful situation, there's the economic cost, and that is a catastrophe. And it's going to be a catastrophe regardless of what anybody does. This council here tonight, or for that matter, any government, state, federal, this is just a situation. And I really take my hat off to the people who were saying, look, we need to come together. We need to help each other. Instead of fighting among ourselves, let's pick ourselves up and go forward as a community. And that, incidentally, is what my client has been trying to do. We amended our application, although I heard some criticism of us for doing it, but we amended our application because of the comments and the concerns that were expressed at the first meeting. There were concerns about closing down Dock Road, and we listened. We tried to act in good faith, and we came up, or we tried to develop a solution that would alleviate the concerns that were expressed about traffic and congestion and emergency access and all of those things. And we think we've done that. Our traffic engineer will testify to the facts of what it is that we're proposing. It's very easy to come in and say this is a heavily traveled road, but we're actually are going to talk to you in terms of facts. We're going to talk about traffic counts. It's all very easy to say, well, we oppose any change. We're the fire department, we oppose any change. And I have the greatest respect for firefighters and other first responders, but it isn't a question of any change. The question is whether it's a change for the better, whether it's a change for the worse. It's a question of does this, when you balance the economic necessity for the help that all of these businesses need against the cost, because there's no free lunch. When you balance risks and benefits, that's what this decision in the final analysis is all about. Now, although this has been referred to, I'm going to refer to the standard of review that this council is obligated to bring to this analysis, and that's the executive order number 150. I know you're all familiar with it, and I won't take your time by reading an 11-page document to you, but it's important. The points that are in that order are important. One, that this is an extraordinary time, and that businesses need help. And two, dealing with restaurant businesses, it's recognized that they can't at this moment resume indoor operations, and therefore they're going to have to, if they're going to survive, if they're going to function, they have to they have to have some accommodation made. And the town has given accommodations to other businesses, and we think that's fine. But when somebody comes in before this council and says, well, they're asking for special favors, no, we're not. We're asking for what the governor's order suggests that we're entitled to, and that is some businesses have put up tents in their parking areas, or for that matter, in a public area, and that has cut down on the number of parking spaces. That's not a good thing, but it's a necessary thing because there's no real alternative for these folks. Now, our situation is just the reverse. Our business was set up long before the municipal land use law and before on-site parking was a factor. So we don't have a parking lot, or we're not next to immediately next to a public parking lot, although we're right across the street from the one that we want to use a little bit of. And in effect, what will work for a restaurant that has on-site parking doesn't work for Bird and Betty's because, as I say, it predates the municipal land use law. Now, one of the things in the emergency order talks about equitably making accommodations for everybody. And that's what we're seeking here. We're seeking equity. We have no problem that the town has made accommodations for other businesses. In fact, we would encourage the town to do exactly that. But we want to be treated the same. And the fact is, if we had area that was sufficient for us to do outside dining, we would use it, but we simply don't. Our traffic engineer will explain how our plan works, but your solicitor has accurately described what it is that the plan proposes to do, and he has also accurately described the fact that this is a temporary solution, and it's just not an issue. It's just not an issue as to thinking that we're asking for permanent licensure out after the COVID virus is over and things are back to normal. There's a new procedure, as Mr. Silver addressed earlier, about temporary licensure because of this emergency, but that procedure didn't exist when we initially filed. So make no mistake about it. The town at any time can say you can't operate in the municipal right of way. You can't operate on municipal property. The town has absolute control over that, and we would consent to any condition that gave the town a degree of assurance. Now, in the emergency order number 150, it talks doing business in this state, and the members of the governing body and every official, employee, or agent of every political subdivision in this state, and of each member of all other governmental bodies, agencies, and authorities in this state of any nature whatsoever to cooperate fully in all matters concerning this order. And this order talks specifically about opening, utilizing street space, among other areas, for restaurants during the period of time that they can't operate inside. Now, I've listened to the comments about we're seeking disparate treatment, and we're not seeking anything of the kind. We're asking for a reasonable accommodation. If this weren't an emergency situation, none of us would be here. As I've already mentioned, this is a temporary situation that goes on during the emergency. I heard earlier about the 100-room motel and the restaurant and the conspiracy and all of that sort of thing. And that really has nothing to do with what we're here tonight, which is a decision on expansion of this license into the area that we have indicated. We can do it safely. We believe it's certainly in my client's economic interest, but it's in the economic interest of our employees. It's in the economic interest of the town. It's in the economic interest of the economy to get people back to work as quickly and as completely as we can. And I won't be hypocritical about it. Certainly my clients are concerned about this economically, but that doesn't make the other reasons any less valid. So for these reasons, I would ask that the application be decided on its merits, not based on whether somebody likes somebody or doesn't like somebody, or whether somebody opposes a different application or not. But can this be done safely? And for the reasons that our professionals are going to give you, yes, it can be done safely. And it's a, I think it was put earlier, it's a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, but it's the best that we can do right now. So with that said, I would like Nathan Mosley, who's our professional traffic engineer, to describe what the plan actually is, how it works, and why it's not going to create public safety or major access problems. Nate, are you on?
I'm here, yes. Thanks, Willis. So I had one question, I guess, for Sherry, whoever's hosting. Is it possible for me to share a screen so I can show the exhibit that I guess we've been talking to and kind of describe it a little bit more? Is that doable?
Okay, go ahead. You can do that now.
Excellent. So I think everyone should be able to see now. I believe this is the exhibit that some people were referencing in their comments. This was an exhibit that my office prepared. Just a little background on myself. Again, my name is Nathan Mosley. I'm a licensed professional engineer here in the state of New Jersey. I'm a senior project manager and partner with a company called Shropshire Associates. We've been doing traffic engineering for over 20 years now in New Jersey. I have over 17 years of experience with Shropshire Associates. I've done hundreds of traffic, parking studies, roadway plans, traffic signal designs, et cetera, for projects throughout the state, including other projects in Beach Haven and other coastal towns along New Jersey. So my office was asked to provide some opinions, some recommendations in conjunction with this request to close this small piece of roadway adjacent to Bird and Betty's between 2nd Street and Dock Road. So what we propose, or what we put into the exhibit basically, is to try and show how I believe we can handle safely traffic through this area, even with the partial closure that will occur, and also addresses, I believe, some of the concerns that have been raised by the police department with regards to creating one-way dead-end roads with the ability to maintain safe and efficient access through here for emergency vehicles as well as the public. So you can see 2nd Street at the top of your, at the top here. So basically what we're proposing to do is maintain the existing traffic patterns that you see on 2nd Street from Pennsylvania all the way west to where the public parking is adjacent to the bay. The change will be that once you get to the point here where the roadway closure has occurred, instead of being able to turn left and go down to Dock Road, you'll be forced to go around through the public parking area due to the closure of this area. However, there still will be two-way traffic from this point all the way back to Pennsylvania Avenue, exactly as there is today. No other changes are proposed to there. You'll still be allowed to access the on-street parking that's there. Vehicles can still travel up and down there as they do today. One thing I think this will do, it will probably reduce some of the trips on 2nd Street in the temporary conditions while this is going into effect, because not as many people will be coming east back towards Pennsylvania from the existing public parking. Beyond that, you'll then travel through the public parking area. This portion of the public parking area is a 24 to 30 foot wide travelway today. It's one way only today. We're not proposing to change that. This 24 to 30 foot wide area is more than sufficient for two-way traffic. So from my perspective, as a one-way flow or for emergency access, this travelway is sufficiently wide to accommodate that. Once you get beyond the public parking, then this is where we are proposing a few minor changes. And the reason for these changes is because of the existing conditions as they are today. So the way Dock Road is today from the public parking area here over to Northwest Avenue is it currently allows two-way traffic. To the east of there, there's only one-way traffic going west towards the bay. So today, someone coming west down Dock Road can continue all the way to the bay. The concern that we have is because we are closing this portion of the two-way right-of-way next to Bird and Betty's, is that someone coming down here, if they were to continue on, would then come into a situation where they're coming into oncoming traffic and there's nowhere to turn around. So the proposal is to install some type of a traffic barrier at the intersection between Dock and Northwest Avenue. What that would be is probably just some type of a, some type of a movable barrier, but something that would prohibit traffic from traveling west, maybe accompanied by a sign saying do not enter or turn left only, something to that effect to direct people that they can't continue west on Dock and they have to go south on Northwest Avenue. Then beyond that, the other proposed change we were going to do is installing an additional barrier on Northwest Avenue at its intersection with Center Street, and that would be to keep anyone from traveling north back towards Dock Road, where we've now created a situation where they would again come into a dead-end street or a dead-end intersection where they'd be forced into an area where they couldn't turn around. Obviously, from a traffic perspective, we want to be able to maintain safe and efficient flow through this area, and I believe that this temporary plan or exhibit, in conjunction with what's being proposed before the board, will address some of these concerns that have been raised about traffic and safety and emergency access as well. Now, I know one of the comments, or some of the comments that have been raised, are regarding this kind of green area that you see here that we had sketched on there. I was just trying to show something that could be potentially utilized by the public, since we were kind of creating some vacated space in the existing roadway. Northwest Avenue through here is about 36 feet wide. A one-way lane going south only needs probably a maximum of about 18 feet for one-way travel. So that still leaves about half of the roadway that would be available. One of the thoughts we had was we could provide additional public parking if that would help. I know there's been some comments raised about loading and unloading this area, and I understand that as being a very valid concern. So this area, instead of being used for potentially public parking, it could be used for loading and unloading, probably much in a similar fashion to the way it is today under normal conditions. That would then also allow access back to the Marine Museum area as well. I know there were some comments raised about that, and still maintaining some existing public parking that's there on Northwest Avenue. So that was the purpose of the exhibit. That's what I was trying to show, that with a few minor changes to a couple of intersections, I believe we can still accommodate safe flow through this area. I know there were some comments raised by the police department as well as by the fire department. I believe that these roads are sufficiently wide enough that even if you were to partially close half the roadway, you could still get a fire truck or an ambulance through there in case of an emergency. Again, these barriers don't have to be something that's permanent. They can be something that would be movable just by pushing it out of the way with a fire truck or an ambulance in case you did have to get through there in emergency situations. You're still able to circulate through this entire area, get up near all the buildings, get up near all the public access points. We're not proposing to close any public sidewalks through this area, so you can still maintain pedestrian access as well. Again, we're only talking about a 200-foot section here of Dock Road that's going to be modified, and again, about a 200-foot section of Northwest Avenue. We're not talking about a large, half a mile to a mile stretch of roadway where it's going to cause people to really have to go out of their way. Yes, there will be some traffic pattern changes in the temporary conditions, but again, this will only be a temporary basis and not for my understanding is not for a permanent or long-term solution. Some other questions, I guess, have been raised about traffic volumes through this area. My office has done traffic counts in this area. We did counts last July towards the end of the month during the peak summer season for Beach Haven. Those counts we did included some counts at the intersection of 2nd Street and Pennsylvania Avenue, as well as Dock Road and Pennsylvania Avenue and Center Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. What that shows is we were out there on a Friday night, Saturday all day, basically. So the peak times are Friday evenings, Saturday in the middle of the day, and Saturday evenings. And what we found is that during those peak hours when things were busiest in this area with regards to traffic from circulation and vehicles moving through to parking and things like that, is that along 2nd Street, there's about 1 to 2 cars a minute traveling in both directions combined. So about 1 or 2 cars either going east or west per minute during the peak hour. Dock Road, it's similar, about 1 car every minute or so traveling west through this section of Dock Road. Center Street, again, is similar, 1 to 2 cars a minute during the peak hours going east and west through this area. So, I understand that, the feeling is that there's just constant traffic and there's congestion. However, the traffic counts and the volume show that those, that's about 1 or 2 cars per minute during the peak times going through there. And in my opinion, from my experience, I believe that even with these small modifications to the roadway network, that these existing trips and future trips can still be accommodated through this area safely. That was just a real quick overview of what we were doing. You know, we're still being able to maintain public access to this area and throughout this. And I guess if you have any other questions, or Willis, if there's anything else that I did not highlight or you wanted me to expand on, just let me know.
Nate, in your professional opinion, will this modified plan provide adequate access for emergency vehicles such as fire trucks or ambulances?
Yes, I believe it will.
Will it unduly slow down the response time of either to get to any relevant point in this area?
I believe that emergency vehicles will still be able to access this entire area. I don't believe there will be any real impedances to getting in or out. I believe that, you know, the majority of the existing roadway infrastructure will be accessible to emergency vehicles, and therefore they should be able to get in and out of there as quickly as possible.
I have no further questions of Mr. Mosley, but if the council has any questions, certainly we're here to try to answer them.
Willis, it's Bruce. Do you have any other comments or individuals that you wish to make comment?
Yes, we have a planner, Tiffany Cuviello, who I would, Tiffany, are you on?
Yes.
I would ask that you go through the plan.
Yes, it's actually Tiffany Morrissey. It was Cuviello. And I'm a licensed professional planner for the state of New Jersey and a member of American Institute of Certified Planners. I've worked with Mr. Burris on many occasions. I've also worked in the past with Beach Haven on some applications. And I was asked to look at this proposal in a land use perspective, because it's more than just a traffic issue. It's a land use perspective and a policy perspective that the borough needs to take into consideration. So in looking at this and looking at your master plan and looking at the executive order, which just recently came out, I believe that it's inherent in the borough's interest to favorably review this application. The biggest concerns, of course, were to address the traffic concerns, and that's why we wanted to make sure we had our traffic engineer provide you with his expertise as to how we can manage this area without speculating what we're doing and to clarify what plan we are proposing. But what happens now moving forward, this becomes part of the community. It's a business, and it's not the only business. There are many businesses that have similar issues, and we have to work with them as a community, in all communities, to help them survive and maintain their employment opportunities and the services they provide to the community. Your master plan talks about this in many ways, and we are all familiar with this. Your master plan talks about your economic element, providing economic vitality while protecting and maintaining a coastal lifestyle and balancing business and residential development with environmental protection. Your master plan even takes a time to talk about the peak season. And this is important because this is your peak season. This is when your businesses do all of their business and they're losing revenues. All of your businesses are losing revenues. And so to come together and to find a solution is important. And your master plan talks about this. To be economically viable, merchants need a steady flow of patrons that include not only vacationers, but also full-time residents utilizing their business, instead of seeking the convenience of internet shopping or leaving the island altogether. You want people to continue to visit the island and have a place to dine and eat, whether they live here year-round, whether they're seasonal residents, or whether they're coming to visit for the day or for vacation. So having opportunities to serve the residents outside venue dining advances purposes in your master plan. And your master plan even talks about Dock Road, which I know we've said on several occasions, but considering alternative pedestrian and circulation movements in the area for a pedestrian mall on Dock Road. And we heard a lot of the concerns of the community in terms of the Dock Road closure and what how it may play out. So we looked at other alternatives, and that's why the plan was modified to limit the impact on Dock Road and really try to take advantage of the adjacent public parking. We can't, like other businesses where they put tents up in parking lots, municipal parking lots, or parking lots next to their business. We don't have the opportunity for large areas like that. We can't take over the full municipal parking lot or even ask to take over any portion of the municipal parking lot without impacting the roadway system, because you can't have people, pedestrians, walking back and forth. So we have to safely design the area so that people can have a place to eat, have a place to dine without impacting the circulation. The executive order goes even further and really talks to what the purposes of the policy of the state are. And that's important in planning, because policy and advancement of a state policy is an inherent service to the public good. And you have to balance that against the public safety concerns that you have. So it states in the executive order that if a municipality chooses to make shared spaces available to restaurants or bars, it is incumbent upon them to distribute these spaces equitably among restaurants or bars who may feasibly seek to use them. And we've seen instances where some areas have had the ability to utilize parking, have the ability to utilize sidewalks. This is an older development that doesn't have all of those same amenities adjacent to it. So we need to find a way to allow this business, in my professional opinion, a way to have close to the seating that they have so that they can maximize their revenues in this time of restraint. In the executive order states that many restaurants or bars will not have sufficient outdoor space to serve their patrons, and thus may seek to use additional space for outdoor food and beverage consumption, including other areas of their property and shared spaces such as sidewalks, streets, and parks. If a municipality chooses to make shared space available to restaurants and bars, again, to do it fairly amongst the community. And also to make sure that it meets your public safety standard. So we looked at this and we looked at many different iterations, which caused a lot of confusion this evening because people were talking about different versions of different plans. And this situation has evolved since we first submitted our application, because not only have we changed our plans, the government and the governor has changed in terms of executive orders as to what's appropriate and what makes sense. And we believe that the plan that we're providing before you really provides an opportunity for a good marriage between the businesses and the community without having a negative impact on public safety. And listen, everything that you do that is different than your ordinance for any business, whether it be our business, whether it be an ice cream parlor, whether it be someone that has a parking area that's large and they can suffice, is going to have an impact on the area. It's going to be different this summer. It's not going to be like it's always been. Use this as an opportunity to learn and grow and to work with the residents and with the businesses to provide an entertainment venue so that the people who are coming to the town have a place to go, have a place to work, have a place to eat, have a place to recreate and to socialize. Socializing being the key term here, because I know we've had very little socialization the past few months, and it's important that we get out and be able to see people and be outside and enjoy each other's company. And that's inherent in the fabric of any community. I believe that this plan before you advances the policies that the executive order has set forth, as well as advances the policies of your master plan and what you as a community have continued to strive to do for your businesses throughout the borough. You have always tried to work and help grow businesses. You've seen where there's needs to improve things, and you've taken the steps to do so. And I think this opportunity here with this final revised plan really advances that in terms of what is being asked by the applicant.
Thank you.
Willis, anything further?
I believe Mr. Burris wants to address the council. Bill, are you still on?
Willis, my points have been covered.
Okay, then what I have to say is just this, and I appreciate the council's attention. It's been a long meeting, and I'm not going to make it any longer. But we're talking here about simply utilizing about 200 feet of a public street and one row of parking in or a partial row of parking in the municipal lot. And that's not a brand new or a revolutionary idea. And the fact is, went on Google a little bit earlier this afternoon, and I looked at elsewhere in New Jersey, in Ridgewood, Metuchen, Hoboken, Red Bank, Hillsdale, Manasquan, Morristown, Somersville, and so on, that they are utilized, they're closing streets or they're making portions of streets available. In fact, they've coined a new term, streeteries, which I hadn't heard until I went on Google this afternoon. So this isn't a rocket to the moon. This is a bandage over a bullet hole. Just in an emergent situation, I agree with what, and I do know it's Tiffany Morrissey, but I always use her professional name, which I've known her by for a while. And this, there's always a price to pay when you change something to try to deal with an emergent situation like this. And the fact is, if you don't pay the price now, it's going to be a bigger price later on, because I don't have to quote the news to this council or to this audience. So we would ask respectfully that our application be approved. We are certainly always willing to work with the municipality if tweaking something here or there would make it better. You're not going to find any opposition from us, but we do ask for some consideration in these very difficult times. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, if you or the council have any questions or want to discuss it, now is the time for that.
I had to unmute myself. I personally, I really want to help every business in town. We have a mechanism set up where every business individually puts together a plan and meets with a group of people, which include our police department and our emergency management team. The plans are sent to us so we can make input if we feel it's necessary. And we've been trying to help every business in town. My concern with this plan is that it does change the direction of the flow of traffic, and it does close down a street. I really don't have a problem with utilizing parking spaces in a street. I'm concerned about the closing of a road, and the flow of traffic. I really feel, as the mayor, I have to take the advice of our police department and our emergency management group, our fire department and our first aid squad. They are against this plan. I do think there are some other alternatives. I did see today a couple plans that they put together for two of the other restaurants, which looks a lot more feasible to me. And I think perhaps our emergency folks would be amenable to that. And when I did say to Sherry, when I spoke to her about it, that it does utilize the street and parking spots in the street. It doesn't, these other plans do not change the direction of traffic on roads or literally take over a road. My feeling is if we do approve these plans, we have to also look at other restaurants throughout town and try to figure out where we can give them seating. Because we do know that some places it's easy to do and other places it's not. So in the areas where it isn't easy, where people don't have a parking lot next to them or a street that's easy to close a bit of or take the parking spots that are in front of them, we have to come up with some other solutions. And I would think we could work with every restaurant. And the emergency people would be also there to give their guidance and ideas of what would be safe. So those are my concerns personally. I really feel that it's important to listen to our police force, our fire company, and our first aid squad.
Thanks, Nance. Bruce, how would you like to proceed?
Anyone else on council wish to speak or question or
I mean,
any other deliberation?
sure, I could say something. This feels, a lot like a land use board meeting. The zoning, the testimony from traffic engineers and things like that. But, I think Nancy's spot on. I think when all three branches of our first responders saying that we can't do that, that we can't change the traffic flow in town, that every minute counts, as someone eloquently said in the meeting before, that we have to heed their advice. This is a public safety thing, and that was part of the executive order. When I look at the traffic flow plan, I was counting how many parking spots are going to be left open. I think it was some in the neighborhood of 42, and they only effectively have one way out. For me, and again, I'm not a professional. What happens if there's a water main break, or for whatever reason, Dock Road gets shut down between the catch and Bird and Betty's and Parker's? How do all those cars get out of there? There is no egress anymore. That's just a layman's look at it from the direction of the arrows and how things are proposed to be directed. So, again, I haven't been trained in this, but, our professionals have, and I'm sure that, we have to listen to these guys. They're the ones that are charged with keeping us safe. So we can't discount them in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion.
Thanks, Dan. Chuck, you have your hand up. Did you want to speak? You have to unmute yourself.
There, how's that?
Better, go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, I think, for Mr. Burris. I'm trying to think when President Trump and the World Health Organization declared that this was a pandemic. I think it was somewhere
March 11th.
March the 11th. When listening to Nathan, I see that he was retained. Obviously, he said he was there working last July doing a study. And does that indicate that the application is not so much for the pandemic as something that's been planned since last year?
If I can just answer your question, sir. The council we were doing last July were for another matter not related to this application or proposal before you.
Thank you.
Okay, and my next question is, I don't know who it was that mentioned that the possible expansion to the north side of Bird and Betty's rather than going west. Is that feasible?
I think they've already approved some seating to the north. Their tent goes to the parking lot, and some of their seating to the north was already approved, I believe, on the property.
Okay. And my final question is, if we're erecting barriers to block off Dock Road and Northwest Avenue, who moves the barriers? Who is responsible for that?
Why would you
The
remove the
applicant-
barriers?
The applicant would be responsible for that.
Okay. That's the answer that I was looking for. And the final thing is, I do remember last week that I think, Mr. Flowers, we talked about the liability that would occur, and you mentioned that, you know, we could add an additional insured to our policy. Is that something that we would require, Sherry, and in a certain amount?
I believe you already require it, that there's got to be a policy taken out in favor of the borough.
Okay, and how much is that? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head. I just saw it was one of the requirements for this type of an application.
Okay, doke.
Anything else, Chuck?
Nope. I you know, agree that we should be trying to help all the businesses, not just the restaurant businesses. You know, all the gift shops and
Clothes
you know,
stores.
Yep. You know, we need to help them all. So that's all I have, Sherry.
Jamie? Jamie, did you want to speak?
Yeah, sorry. I have to keep myself muted with little ones around here.
Go ahead.
I'm just completely torn with this tonight, because originally we thought that the governor was going to allow 50% inside capacity and then allow additional outside. But now that he has made only outdoor seating available, I'm so nervous that we're going to lose a lot of these restaurants if we do not help them any way that we can. And listening to their experts and then listening to our fire department and then our police department and our EMT, you know, like Dan said, it feels like a land use board meeting where we're listening to, you know, all these experts and all these different possibilities. But then listening to the public, if this would only be for 2.5 months, if that, it's not that amount of time. And it's the only amount of time that these businesses are going to be making money. And I do feel that we already did open the possibility for other establishments to ask for municipal parking when we allowed one restaurant a whole parking lot. So to try to keep it on the side of equal, that's kind of where I'm having this divisiveness. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say.
Tom Lynch? You have to unmute yourself first. Touch your screen. Unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is a very tough decision to make because we don't know something's going to change next week or the week after or 2 months from today. My concern is that the police department, fire department, and the first aid and EMTs rather, are against it because of some critical problems that may occur. And the problems could come back to haunt the whole town, and I'm really concerned about that. It's a very tough decision because, you know, as I say, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be 2 months. I don't want anyone to lose any business. I want to help all the businesses, whether it be that or a clothing store or a pizza place. I want them all to succeed if they possibly can. So it's a tough decision. I have to live with the police department. I mean, the police and the fire department, pretty adamant about this. I mean, it's not a what if, it's we're going to have a problem with this. And the first aid has also voiced the problem. So it's going to be a tough decision. Okay?
Thanks, Tom.
I have a question. I have another question.
Go ahead.
All right. so technically, we're voting on the extension of the liquor license is what we're voting on. But the governor now has already said that we can utilize public space to extend the liquor license through November 1st. So it sort of seems to me to be a moot point. At this point, if they come to the committee and ask for some parking seats in parking spaces around there that are on public property, we can automatically extend that area to liquor. We don't really need this particular vote at this point in time that I can actually see. Am I correct on this? I'm asking Bruce or whoever knows about this. I mean, technically, up until the November, we have the municipalities have the ability to allow liquor to be served on the public right away.
Yeah, there's still an online application that would be required for that COVID expansion permit.
For every business.
There's two mechanisms to do what is being sought here. One is the current one that the applicant has asked for, and the second is the special COVID expansion permit. I believe that's actually what the special ruling calls it that Sherry's talking about now. And that automatically expires November 30th, if that's approved. And that, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that even goes through the governing body. I think that just is ministerial with the clerk's office and the chief of police, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yes. Okay,
So
how
to
would
me,
we like
that's
to
sort of a
handle this
moot
application?
point.
Bruce,
This
we need to do
doesn't-
something with this application then?
Yeah, so a member of the governing body now either has to make a motion to approve it or deny it or table it.
So is there a motion out there? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'm prepared either way to read a motion into the
Right.
record. And then have the council consider it depending on what their preference is.
Well, I have to say, I'll propose, I'll take the first step and say I would have to recommend the motion denying this proposal based on what I stated earlier. That doesn't
Thank you.
preclude them for coming back and asking for some more space somewhere else in the street.
There's a motion to deny.
And now I need a second, and then there would be any debate, if any, and then a vote.
Second.
Thank you. Bruce, would you like me to take a roll call?
I could read the resolution I prepared. Just for the benefit of the public, I had one prepared either way, which pretty much just outlines the procedural history of this. And then based on the comments as of the governing body, I added. So I apologize. It's somewhat lengthy and I know it's a long meeting, but just so the record is clear. Resolution 119-2020, resolution denying an application for a place-to-place transfer, expansion of premises of Bird and Betty's LLC, trading as Bird and Betty's, liquor license 1503-33-004-005, located at 529 Dock Road. Whereas on April 22nd, 2020, Bird and Betty's LLC, trading as Bird and Betty's licensee or B&B, to be referred to herein, owner of license number 1503-33-004-005, filed a retail liquor license application for a place-to-place transfer expansion of premises pursuant to NJAC 13:2-7.2C, and whereas licensee is a bar and restaurant located at 529 Dock Road, which operates as a waterfront restaurant. Whereas in an effort to mitigate the economic impact of 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, licensee through the place-to-place transfer application expansion of premises process submitted an application seeking to extend its license outside its boundaries and into a portion of Dock Road, a public municipal thoroughfare identified on the map submitted with its application, which generally is an area between licensee and a neighboring restaurant known as Parker's Garage. Whereas Dock Road is a public vehicular and pedestrian right-of-way, which leads to a municipal parking lot. And whereas Dock Road is traversed by members of the public, including pedestrian, vehicular, and bicycle traffic to access the municipal parking lot, the public boat slips, and family fishing areas. And whereas as a result of the application, the borough received written objections from members of the public. And whereas the borough also received written comment from the Chief of Police, Beach Haven Volunteer Fire Company, and Beach Haven First Aid Squad, which disfavored approving the application. And whereas on May 20th, 2020, the borough conducted a public hearing on the application, wherein the mayor and council heard from the licensee and members of the public, both in support of and in opposition to the application. And whereas a public hearing was scheduled for May 28th, but because of technological reasons was adjourned to June 28th, 2020, with consent of the applicant. And whereas on or about May 29th, 2020, licensee submitted an amended application seeking to expand its license to the west rather than to the south into a public vehicular right-of-way and extending past the boundaries of its property. And whereas prior to the June 8th, 2020 meeting, the borough received written comments on the application as described above, and at its June 8th, 2020 meeting heard from the licensee, its representatives, and members of the public both in support of and in opposition to the application. And whereas approving the application would require expanding the licensed area outside the property boundaries of the premises, licensing and closing a public vehicular right-of-way, and alter the direction and flow of traffic in the vicinity of licensee. And whereas this application is not for a temporary extension as allowed by the Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control pursuant to Special Ruling 2020-10, whereas the governing body finds that approving the application is not in the best interest of the Borough of Beach Haven, now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, that the April 22nd, 2020 and May 29th, 2020 amended application for a place-to-place transfer expansion of premises of license number 1503-33-004-005, Bird and Betty's LLC trading as Bird and Betty's is hereby denied. Does the council want to make any changes to that? We can do that. You should discuss that now, or you could proceed to vote as read into the record.
There's nothing in that that precludes them from coming back with another.
No, not at all. They could come back with a formal application like this through, the ABC regs, or with an application through the POSSE system under the special ruling.
With this new thing with the public right away with the liquor licensing, I know a while back we had a conversation with the Ship Bottom Brewery about Seagull Lane, and I guess what the issue there was traversing alcoholic beverages across the street. Has anything changed there? Is that now eased, that restriction, or is that still in play? Is that still in force?
I'm not sure what the question is. The executive order does permit, under some circumstances, expansion of premises into non-contiguous property, if that's what you're referring to.
No, I was referring to, they wanted to close Seagull Lane, and then we said no to that. Then they asked for seating in the park across the street. Mm-hmm. And we, according to land, the ABC, they're not allowed to serve across a public road. Has that changed? Like, they had to be self-contained in the park with a generator and, whatever beer or whatever they were serving. Is that still the way it is? I'm just trying, it breaks my heart to say no to this. I'm trying to find other avenues for maybe another way. I'm trying to see another way through this.
Can I say something?
Are we entertaining more public comment right now?
No, this should be the governing body only.
Well, he asked a question, so.
I think in reading the executive order, and maybe Bev, Trom could, or Bill could, there was something that I read about the brewery situation. It was a bit different than the restaurant situation, and I don't think that this would be a problem if we allowed them to set up tables across the street. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I think according to the special rule of governor, it doesn't have to be contiguous.
Mayor, I'm just going to read part of the executive, not the executive order, the special ruling 2020-10.
Right.
It's on page 2 of that. The COVID-19 expansion permit will allow licensees to expand their premises onto areas adjacent to or contiguous with the licensed premises where they may provide for the sale and service of alcoholic beverages as on the primary licensed premises. The director may also permit a licensee to expand its premises onto non-contiguous property, provided the property is in reasonable proximity to the licensed premises and the licensee has safeguards in place to ensure that alcoholic beverages will be sold and served in a manner that protects public health, safety, and welfare. It continues to discuss it more, but I'm not going to read it all into the
Good, that's what I thought.
Thank you.
So now if there's any more deliberation by the council or if it wishes to change the resolution as read, otherwise we should take a roll call whenever the council's ready.
Well, I'm ready. Is there anybody have any more comments on council?
No.
Okay, so a yes vote would be to it almost sounds a little backwards, but a yes vote would be to deny the application because the current motion is to deny the application.
You calling for a roll call, Bruce?
It should be a roll call, yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, but please come back. I want to, as a town, everybody's right. We need to help. But I just can't see a way around closing a street.
Mrs. Baumiller?
I think that if we don't do what we have to do, these businesses are going to close. So I'm saying no.
Mr. Lynch?
Yeah, I'm saying yes. I'm hoping something will come back that'll be a little more favorable.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Thank you. Bruce, anything further?
No, the application was denied, and I'll send you a copy of the resolution, which we read into the record.
Thank you. Ordinance 2020-11C, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 212 zoning to include swimming pools and coping within the definition of building. Final reading.
Sherry, can I speak on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so based on the recommendations from the land use board that we just recently got about 2 hours before the meeting, I want to make a motion to table this to the June 25th meeting so we can make revisions. So I'd like to make a motion to table this to the June 25th meeting.
I'll
Second.
second that. Whoops.
Thank you. We'll just roll call it. Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Maskell?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
All matters listed under item consent agenda are considered to be routine by the municipal council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds, and any item requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately. All consent agenda items will be reflected in full in the minutes. Resolution 122 is returning a street bond. Resolution 123 is refund of overpayment of taxes. Resolution 125, canceling and refunding taxes due to subdivision. Resolution 126, approving change order number 1, final for Shore Top Construction for the tennis court project. Resolution 127 is approving change order number 1, final Shore Connection for the Amber Street project, which was a $15,000 decrease in the original contract price. Resolution 128, extending the due date for mercantile licenses. And 131, approving a membership to the Beach Haven Volunteer Fire Company number 1.
Does anybody want to remove any item from the consent agenda to discuss further?
No, no, no.
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 All right, is there a motion? to
Motion.
approve the
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Franklin,
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Maskell,
Yay. Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
I have a bill list this evening in the amount of $1,132,586.84. Have you all reviewed the bills?
Everybody read the bills? I mean, do you have, anybody want to?
Yes. Motion to approve bills.
Thank you, Jamie. Tom, you're my second.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Maskell,
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we can open the floor for public comment for any other member of the public that would wish to speak at this late hour. Let's try to keep it short. Theodora Lambert, state your name and address for the record.
I'd actually just like for everybody, address is 516.
I can't really hear you at all.
It's really difficult to hear. It's kind of like a robot. So.
Better?
No. No.
No, I can't really hear you.
Oh.
Your
No.
connection doesn't sound very good. Your internet connection doesn't sound good.
Not well enough to understand what you're saying. We hear noise.
All right. Okay, is there any other member of the public that would like to speak? You can raise your hand. Go ahead, Melanie Magaziner.
Hi, everyone. I just want to make sure that the council understands something about the committee. There's been multiple plans that have been brought up because they absolutely have said no to using street parking for tables. So while Dan, you want us to come back, there's no options left for us. So I just want to make sure that you all understand that.
No, I think we can
Police is
continue
a
to
hard
work with
no. He
We
said,
No,
are-
I think
I
we'll
just want to
continue
make
to
sure
work
that
together.
council understands there's no options left for us.
No, can you hear me, Melanie? Can you hear me, Melanie?
I don't think she can hear you, but I can answer the question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sherry.
Okay, the discussion's not over. We can continue to talk.
Okay, but it's a hard no using parking spots on the street from the chief of police. So I just want to make sure council understands that there's nothing left for us after that. Okay?
I disagree. I think we can continue to talk.
Well, I've given 7 plans and left 3 streets and used the parking spots. No.
You know, I've been forwarded, I thought every plan that came up, and I never saw until today these other plans for you that you put together for Parker's Garage and the Black Whale. That's the first other plan I've seen.
I was told it's a hard no using street parking spots. That's what I was
And
told.
I'm telling you, let's continue to talk.
I think that maybe that was before the governor's executive order. I think we need to rethink that.
Okay, well, just let us know when you rethink it.
Melanie, in all honesty, I think all of us want you to succeed and we'll do what we can. Truly.
Courtney Kona.
Hi, I just want to say, by the time you guys come to a resolution on this, like Tiffany said, the peak season's going to be over. Every day that goes by, these restaurants and all of the businesses are losing revenue on a daily basis. What point do they have in continuing to try to go and come up with a plan when everything's just getting shot down and no one's backing them?
Well, tomorrow it could be resolved. Anyone else? All right, I don't see any other member of the public wishing to speak. All right, at this time, we'll close the floor and we'll take final remarks from council. Go ahead, Nance.
Well, I do think we can come up with some solutions to help the 3 restaurants that are having some problems. I truly want everybody to make it. It's a very difficult time. In addition to that, no restaurants can open until this 15th, I think, for seating outdoors. So that's a week away from today. So maybe we can figure this out before the 15th. Again, things are changing dramatically. Hopefully within a couple weeks after that, we'll have some spaced out indoor seating. I think everybody's anxious to be able to get out and go to restaurants. Meanwhile, I'm hoping that takeout businesses are at least helping people keep alive. We certainly want all our businesses to succeed, every business. So many people are suffering. Think of the beauty parlors. They can't even start cutting hair until the 22nd. So it's dreadful. Think of the wedding businesses. I've written a letter. I've written letters to the governor. I'm in contact with his office frequently. I think it's so important that the powers that be understand the situation. There is a bill. I'm hopeful there is a bill on the floor of the New Jersey Assembly right now that would, where the state would reimburse lost rents, which is helpful, thinking that there's many people that had to cancel rent, had a lot of cancellations, and they depend on that money to pay their mortgages. And so we're all in this together. It's a total mess. We still do have to think about the health consequences. There was something in the news about 11 people in Pennsylvania getting infected from one person in New Jersey at the shore. I don't know what shore. So, I mean, it's still, it's still a bad situation out there. And hopefully with outdoor seating will help. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Jamie?
No, excuse me. I don't have much to say. I was just echoing what the mayor was just saying, that we have written letters to the governor and that she is on a weekly call with the governor's office. So we are being very proactive in trying to help and support the businesses, and we will continue to do so. And I'm hoping and being optimistic that the numbers will continue to go down, and then people will still be vigilant and we can have a successful season. Thank you.
Chuck?
Nothing further really. I just wanted to say that, we are obligated to guard against, authorizing situations which are going to imperil health, safety, and the public welfare. And I think that, I think that this particular application can be changed, and hopefully we can find a way to allow them to get the additional seating that they need. And I'm sure that if you work with Sherry, she can help you. She's terrific.
Tom?
Yeah,
I'm very much like Dan. I would like to hear of any other applications or thoughts that might come down, because I don't think this is the last one. I want to help any way we can, but I also want to have safety issues that may come up. I want to be very, very careful with that, especially with the police and the fire department and the first aid. So if there's other thoughts and processes, we'd be glad to listen to it and see what we can do to help. But we're out to help everybody within town, and that's a word from me. Thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, it's much of the same. Again, tonight's meeting was especially tough. I don't want to see anybody struggle any more than they have to this year. 2020 has just been brutal. I want everybody to come out the other side of this as whole as they can be. I don't think anybody on council has anything else but compassion and the want to help in any way, shape, or form. I think it's important that everybody knows how hard Nancy has been working. I had a couple conversations with some business owners this week, and they were asking me, well, what's being done? So, well, actually, a lot. More than I guess the general population knows. And I think we could be a little bit more transparent with that. But I know, as with many other communities, that the push is on, from the local level to the state level, to let us open, ease us up, let our businesses open. And I really hope that the governor is listening and that we can get back to whatever we can safely sooner than later, so we all have a chance to succeed and continue to succeed going forward. And any other businesses in town, please, we're open for ideas always, so please come forward if you have one.
Okay. All right. Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Have a
Good
good night.
night.
Thank
Good night.
Thank you.